Open the pod bay doors, please, Hal.
One thing I hate worse than a honky pig cock. And that's a nigger pig cock.
Hey, what kind of talk is that, soul brother? Don't you know that black is beautiful?
Pod bay doors are open. Welcome once again. I'm Jerry Dean Roberts of armchaircinema.com. Here with my co-host, as always, Mr. Doug Haller. How the heck are you today, sir?
One more word, soul brother. You had it made. Black folks would have followed you anywhere. You could have been another Marcus Garvey, or even another Malcolm X. But instead, you ain't nothing but a pimp with a chicken shit backbone.
He's not saying that to me. That's a quote from today's. Is that black enough for you?
Cotton comes to Harlem. Wow, you picked him.
Yeah, I discovered this.
I had actually seen this before, but when I was watching it, I couldn't remember that I had.
Yeah, I was the same way. I've seen it before. I saw it back in my Blockbuster video days. Yeah. And I saw it and kind of forgot about it. But
I saw it in, it was a lockdown watch.
Yeah.
So I had virtually no memory of it at all. Because
Did you see the sequel?
No, I didn't get to the sequel.
There is a sequel to this.
Yes.
It's called Come Back, Charleston Blue.
Yeah, and it's hard to find.
It's streaming on YouTube. It's one of those old movies that's just there.
But it's edited. And I was like, I don't know. And I couldn't find the theatrical.
Well, this came about because I'm going to toot my own horn here. I'm doing a very involved video series in 3 parts on
if I
all
may
of
interrupt, what is this but shameless self-promotion?
This whole podcast
the entirety is shameless self-promotion.
Well, yeah, I mean,
so be not afraid, my friend.
where can I sell myself except to my own podcast?
That's right.
But I'm over on my YouTube channel, Armchair Cinema. I'm doing a 3-part series on all the movies of 1970, not the 1970s, specifically the year 1970,
which is just bonkers to me. Like, that is just a lot.
Yeah, it was I'm coming up on the very end. I'm working on the films of December.
Now, were you only doing American releases?
Or, and imports.
Oh, you were doing imports as well. Okay.
Also imports. Okay. But the rule is it has to be U.S. releases, because otherwise it gets really crazy.
Well, I mean, otherwise, then you have to check other places' scheduling and like, did it come out here in 1975, but it was made and released in
or one of those horror movies that was
anywhere that was 5 years previous in its home country or whatever.
Or one of those horror movies that was released like 5 years earlier, but they've released it 3 times under a different title. So you think it's something new.
Exactly what are you saying about Japanese movies?
But I'm sitting there and and I have to have seen it at some point in my life. That there was just a lot that came out of my Blockbuster years, my Blockbuster video years. And some movies that I wanted to talk about, some of it comes from memory. This was one of them. And I went back and I watched this again because this, like a lot of movies from 1970, is streaming free on YouTube. And I've seen this a couple of times. And
it's also, I think, on Tubi.
Is it on Tubi?
Streaming free on Tubi, and then you can rent it, I think, on Amazon.
Yeah. There are a couple of movies.
Or no, sorry, Pluto. It's on Pluto.
There are a couple of movies, because this is so far back, this is 52 years back, that are just not anywhere to be found.
Some of them are hard.
Some of them are hard. But this movie came about because of that, and it was a movie that I'd seen but kind of forgot about. But if you know anything about black cinema in the early 70s, you know that this is a seminal picture. This is one if you're studying that, you really should have heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing I've noted, and I noted this in my review in that video, is that you always hear about Shaft and Foxy Brown and the Mac being
Cleopatra Jones
being
Superfly.
the early, being the early
But
films. This came before all of that.
This predates Shaft by what, a year or two?
A year. At least a year.
And it is also notable as Ossie Davis's directorial debut. He only directed 5 features and 2 television. He did an episode of television, he did a TV movie, but this was his first film as a director, and the way he co-wrote it as well, with the novelist and the and someone else, the writer for what did he write for? Malcolm X, actually.
Interesting story. He was born in Georgia in, I think, 1913. His name is Rayford Chapman Davis. And his mother, I think his mother was a child of slaves. And when she went to the clerk to register that he'd been born, she didn't have an accent that the clerk could really understand. So Rayford Chapman, she told him RC, but in her broken accent, Ossie. That's where his name came from. And he said, it stuck with me. It has stuck to me for my whole life.
He was born in 1917.
1917, right. He had a full career.
He's legendary. He had some miraculous parts with Spike Lee. And just countless other people. Like, he was in, 113 movies, it says here. 113 credits as an actor.
Including Bubba Hotep, where he played the reincarnation of Jack Kennedy.
Oh, I loved that movie. I'm sorry. It is a stupid little movie, but I loved the hell out of it. I had so much fun with that stupid little movie.
I'm not good at reading hieroglyphics, but I think it says Cleopatra does the nasty.
Just amazing. And not only as an actor, but as an activist.
And a playwright.
And I mean,
he and Ruby Dee had their own show.
Yeah.
They had a variety show in the 70s.
I did not know that.
Yeah. It's called Ruby and Ossie.
She's another one that's just phenomenal.
Yeah.
Just...
She got an Oscar nomination for that Denzel Washington picture. Was it American Gangster? Something like that?
Yeah, I think so.
But they worked together a lot.
A lot.
He got this job sideways.
Accidentally.
Yeah, because Samuel Goldwyn had bought the rights to this book by Chester Himes, who had been... he had accidentally backed into a life of crime, and someone suggested that he start writing, and he wrote this book, Cotton Comes to Harlem. It was released in 1967.
Though I no longer live there, Pittsburgh native Samuel Goldwyn.
Yeah.
Yes, Chester Himes.
Son of the legacy, the MGM, and this film. This is an MGM production. But but he asked him to direct the film, and Ossie Davis was like, I don't know first thing about directing. He says, go do it.
I'm not a director. He's like, yeah, just do it.
Just do it.
And he puts together
a very entertaining movie.
Yes, it is. It's very, very entertaining. It's not a great movie.
But, well, as an exercise in, if you sit down with your critical cap on and you start picking it apart, yeah, it falls apart. But as an entertainment,
yeah,
you're enjoying it.
Oh, yeah. Up one side and down the other. I mean,
it's essentially a heist movie.
Yeah.
Or, well, not really a heist movie. There's a heist at the beginning.
It's kind of it's a quasi heist crime conspiracy
hybrid.
Yeah, because it's hard to say exactly whether or not Deke O'Malley had anything to do with the initial setting up of the theft and the cotton barrel cotton.
But Deke O'Malley is a scumbag.
Oh, horrible.
Well, let's start at the beginning.
He's a caricature of the jackleg preacher that tried to get in on the civil rights movement after everybody was already dead.
Right. This movie begins kind of beautifully because there's a shot of Harlem, which is where the movie takes place. It's
really
Harlem, and yeah, Cotton comes to Harlem. Believe it or not.
Look, it's not the guy
they
from
don't do
Harlem.
A Cotton.
They don't do the
goes to Yonkers.
Yeah, no, and they didn't do the guy from Harlem and set it in Miami.
Right, or set it in Vancouver. But the beginning of this movie is kind of mesmerizing because you're sitting there and you're watching.
It's just a huge cartoon. It's
well, at the beginning, it's interesting because what they show you is that Harlem is, yes, poverty-stricken, but also a community of people. There's people there, and they built a community for themselves.
It's what was known back then as a third space.
Right. And into this comes this absolutely beautiful Rolls Royce.
Mm-hmm.
Not tricked out, not pimped out, but a beautiful Rolls Royce. Cutting through.
No, it's not Burgess Meredith from that crazy dummy movie with Anthony Hopkins.
Magic.
Yeah.
But it's like it's driving down the middle of Harlem, and it's just sort of slicing right through this poverty, and this promise of some opulence that eludes everybody else, and crazily behind it is this gold-plated armored truck. And you realize, of course, that all that glitters is not gold, but it's this promise that goes right through and right up to Deke O'Malley, who steps out of this car, and he looks like a TV preacher.
Yeah, he is what is known as a jackleg preacher.
He's in a tailored suit.
One could say that perhaps maybe later on he could be maybe interpreted as a caricature of maybe, I don't know, what's the Jesse?
Al Sharpton?
No, not Al. Well, Al Sharpton and I had his name. Jesse Jackson.
Any number of those preachers that you see that seem to release books far more frequently than a human being should be allowed to release, that should be able to release books. You ever notice
Stephen
that?
King.
Well, yeah. I mean,
although he just rewrites the same book over and over.
I'm talking about people like Beth Moore and T.D. Jakes and people like that who just seem to have this. People
David
who just
Baldacci.
seem to have this industry.
Yeah.
Yeah. this industry of books that seem to come out like every week.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he steps out, he steps onto this stage, and people are so happy to hear from him because he's doing the Marcus Garvey thing. He's come up with this Back to Africa program, where he's going to sell tickets on the Black Beauty to this and brothers and sisters, we are going home.
And it's all a con. It is a con, which is why I'm like, he was involved in the theft.
Yeah.
But then he lost track of it.
It got out of hand.
It did.
But everybody is so excited that, I mean, the only two people who are not buying this are our heroes in the film: Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones. Raymond St. Jacques and Godfrey Cambridge.
I had to look up because when I was watching this, I'm like, boy, I really think I've seen this before. And then a white cop comes up and addresses Jeffrey Cambridge by a nickname of his nickname.
Godfrey.
Yeah, Godfrey Cambridge.
Yeah.
He's greeted with a shortening of his nickname, which is Gravedigger Jones. White cop, uniformed cop, goofball cracker, comes up and says, Digger. And I had to go back. I had to look up his name.
Yeah.
And then I had to go back and make sure he didn't say something different.
Yeah. Given the context and given the characters and given the spirit of this whole movie, that's why it catches you.
Yeah.
Because
because the captain later on does use the word.
Yeah.
Pejoratively in front of two black detectives that he then tries to pawn it off as a figure of speech.
Right.
I didn't mean nothing by it. It's a figure of speech. No, it's not. No, it's a figure of hate. It's a figure of hate speech. But yeah, so this whole thing gets
I'll just say this.
Complicated.
You remember George Carlin's seven words you can't say on television? I think that word is 7 of them now.
Dependent upon who's saying it in the context within, yes.
True. Yeah.
But yeah. So it turns. They somehow there's this barrel of unprocessed raw cotton in Harlem.
Yeah, there's in the middle of all of this. He's selling tickets to this thing, and all of a sudden, and it turns out he has raised $87,000 of the community's money.
Which in 1970 in the Harlem neighborhood is just
that's millions,
unfathomable. Yeah.
He, but all of a sudden these guys jump out, and in orange suits, and they've got machine guns, and they cause a riot, and they take the money, and they run off with it. They steal the armored truck. I
thought they came out of the armored truck.
Did they come out of the armored truck?
I thought they came out of the armored truck. That's why when they were there, it was like, wait a minute, he's behind all this.
They, because all of a sudden it turns into for the next 5 minutes, turns into a really fun chase sequence. It starts off with this fun, it spins off into this fun chase sequence. The music is great. The editing is great. There's all this stuff going on, and Ossie Davis essentially announces the kind of film that he's making, because it's almost cartoonish what happens.
It's very much live action cartoon. If
there's anything in the movies that I love, it's the innocent bystander. I love innocent bystanders. There's all these people and all these things going on. There's there's a weird sequence where you see them driving down the road, and a guy comes out and then runs back in and puts on an outfit, and you realize he's the funeral director, the neighborhood
Right.
funeral director.
Yeah.
And but it's such an exaggerated outfit. He looks like the mayor from the Powerpuff Girls.
Yeah. He's just neat, like over the top.
There's a guy, I love this guy, the one who is so smitten by these three fine-looking women walking down the street that he doesn't even realize there are bullets flying everywhere. This may be the only time in a movie I've ever seen a man saved by his own dick rather than destroyed by it.
Hey,
there's
always
guy,
got to be
there's
one
a
exception
man,
to the rule.
there's a white man selling mink coats, and
He turns around, the guy steals them.
and the guy steals them because he thinks he's selling them to a woman, but it turns out it's a guy in a wig, and he just takes the coats and runs off with it. The poor guy's just got his arms out, like it's a hey, what happened kind of,
What happened?
what happened? You know?
What happened?
But it's crazy, and it all ends with this. They turn a corner, and out of the truck falls this barrel, this bale of Mississippi cotton on the street corner.
Nobody had to jump down, turn around, or pick it.
No, and nobody knows how it got there.
That's the biggest mystery in the whole thing.
Yeah. How did it get there? Why is it there?
Why is it there? What purpose? And how did the money get into it? Why?
And it disappears.
And disappears. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
And what's interesting is this whole case, because the movie essentially becomes them diving into the neighborhood and meeting various characters along the way, on their way to finding out what this bale of cotton was all about, and getting behind this crooked Back to Africa program. And what's interesting, and this is the most interesting thing to me, is that when the white cops come up to Harlem, Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones are like, basically, we don't work for you. We're not
right.
We don't work for you. We're not. You don't know what goes on up here. You really. This case is ours. This is not yours.
Right.
And so they stay on it because they know the neighborhood. They know the people. And the white cops are most likely to go into Harlem and just start busting heads and shaking people around. Which Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones do that, but not on instinct.
No.
This movie is weird. Is interesting because it shifts back and forth so much between that high comedy that we were talking about in the chase sequence and these sort of dramatic moments, because all of that is cut by what happens afterwards, because they go to visit I think he's a drug addict, played by Cleavon Little.
Little boy.
Who
oh Lordy help me.
He witnessed a pickpocket get run over by a car, and
catapulted like a dummy.
Oh my God! And what's interesting is when he's moaning about it, they flash back to it. You can see that it's still fresh in his mind. What's going on?
Yeah. White guys, they had on masks. How did you know they were white? Oh, Lordy, help me. I'm asking you, how did you know they was white? They run white, damn it.
You just know. Yeah.
You do.
And that's essentially what the whole movie is that it is this shifting back and forth between these comic moments. The narrative is kind of screwy. It's kind of all over the place.
And
And
you get things like, oh, it's a long time since I've seen cotton like that. Digger, you ain't never seen no raw cotton before. You were born and raised right here in New York, just like me. And any black man might rat on whitey. I might myself.
Yeah. I love the actors they choose to play the white cops because, I mean, they choose the whitest actors.
Yes.
I mean, they choose the whitest actors they can possibly find. It's Eugene Roach, John Calitz. I mean, it's just, and they do not respect them. There's no mutual respect between them at all.
No.
And they're digging into it, trying to find out. I mean, they even go and visit, and the white cops would not do this. They go and visit a white mobster.
Mm-hmm.
And sit down with him and try to figure out, were you involved in this?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, no, we don't do things like this.
Right.
And it's fascinating.
Was that Calhoun?
Yeah.
Sickly looking man.
Yeah.
He looked like he was nearly dead.
Yeah. They visit, or you cut to sort of the side of this story. Into this thing comes a junk dealer, appropriately a junk dealer, played in a wonderful performance by Red Fox. This was his very first performance, his first movie role.
Really?
I'm a Red Fox fan. I have been
too.
For years. And he's not in this movie criminally. He's just not in this movie enough.
No, but he gets a beautiful ending.
He does. He gets a beautiful retirement.
Yes, he does.
And if you don't know who Red Fox is, get away from my podcast. Cause,
I don't really know how you would not.
He actually spent the better part of his career on that Chitlin circuit.
Yeah.
And it was a way for black performers to be able to tour and do what they did because they couldn't travel with white performers.
Yeah.
And they could play in certain venues. And they did this with a lot of Jewish performers too. But a lot of people came out of that. Nipsey Russell and Slappy White. A lot of comics came out. Pigmeat Markham were on that circuit. But Red Fox came out of it, and in the 1960s became extremely famous, very, very famous, as
party records.
His party records. He was known as the king of the party records.
Because initially, now what? Maybe the kids don't know what those are. Now, a party record, a party record was known as it was a black comedian going very, very, very blue. Bluer than what was deemed appropriate for white audiences.
Very dirty.
Yes. He was the precursor of Eddie Murphy Richard Pryor and anybody of the ones that just go hardcore. We wouldn't have Lewis Black without Red Fox.
Right. We wouldn't have a lot of comedians without Red Fox. We wouldn't
have a lot of them. So, so these records weren't available to white people, but at parties, at adult parties in the black community, they would play these records and they would just have the best time imaginable.
Dick Gregory said what you did was you had a party at your house and you would wait until all the Christians left.
Yeah.
And then, somebody would say under their breath, "Hey, I got Red Fox. I got Red Fox." and you would get a pizza or something, and you would sit around and you would listen to Red Fox's album. And it is dirty. I mean, I have a few of his albums.
Oh yeah,
and
gloriously so.
I was really happy that The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which I watched over Christmas, pays homage to that, because as the main character is trying to come up as a stand-up comic, she has to listen to other stand-up comics, and one of them that she's listening to is Red Fox, and she's in her room with the door closed and the volume turned down and the headphones on, and she's listening to Red Fox. And but the thing about Red Fox in his albums is he didn't affect.
No,
he never affected. It was expected that if you were a black comedian, you wore an exaggerated outfit. You spoke with a dialect. It was demanded that you speak with that dialect, that socialectic, broken dialect. And
use means we's got to all that kind of
minstrel show stuff.
Yeah.
I'm currently reading Cliff Nesteroff's book Outrageous, which is about the culture wars. And he talks about this, that when you were a black person in a movie or later on television or on a radio show, they didn't tell you had to do that. It was demanded that you had to do that.
Right. You weren't even going to get booked if you didn't do that already.
Right. If, Hattie McDaniel was on a radio show, she had to be putting on that accent.
Right.
And, all of that. You couldn't speak like an intellectual.
Like a person.
You couldn't speak like in your normal accent.
Right.
The thing is, this movie got Red Fox noticed by Aaron Rubin, who was looking for someone to be the lead in Sanford and Son. And I swear this is true. They tried different actors. Sanford and Son almost starred Bernard Hughes and Paul Sorvino. I am not even making this up. This came from Aaron Rubin himself. It was supposed to be another American sitcom based on a British sitcom, this one called Steptoe and Son, because they had been successful at transferring All in the Family from a British sitcom. And they wanted the other side. You had a white man talking about other ethnicities. Now you have a show with a black man talking about other ethnicities. And they didn't want Red Fox for that show because of his reputation.
Right.
But they tried it out, and he took to it naturally.
Well, I mean, it was almost like he was born to play that role.
Yeah. He they hired a black writer, and this was unheard of. They hired a black writer to be in the writer's room. His Muslim name was Ilunga Adele. And the reason they brought him in was because he could put into the dialogue observations that white writers could not. There is a wonderful scene that he wrote where Fred has to go to the dentist because he has a toothache. And he says, and Fred says, "I want a white dentist." And this came from Adele's real life. He said, "I want a white dentist." And Lamont says, "Why do you want a white dentist?" And aren't you turning your back on the brothers? Don't you know that, you know? And he says, no, I want a white dentist. He says, it stands to reason. All of the best medical schools, all the best dental schools are of the white people, for the white people, and by the white people.
Mm-hmm.
White dentist, please.
Mm-hmm. His logic is regrettably sound.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the kind of reality that they were going for, because in order to write that kind of part, you have to have that experience. And it became this show that, and this is another interesting point. All of the people in the show, almost all of the supporting players on that show, the actress who played Aunt Esther, Uncle Woody, you know, his friends, Grady, Bubba, Leroy, and Skillet, all of these actors had been in vaudeville and had been on the Chitlin circuit since they were children. But by the 70s, none of them had ever been on television because they were black. And so this was the first time that they ever got that exposure, and he gave that to them by allowing them, because I mean, it was not just he hired somebody off the street. He hired people who'd been in the business that he had known for decades. And with this sort of breaking open, because this is, I think, one of the first sitcoms to ever have a black lead. There was Julia, but that was a different kind of thing. But to populate it with not only supporting players, but really good supporting players is what made it memorable. And that's why that show is so invaluable in that way. But yeah, like I say, he's in this movie, but not enough. He's kind of around the sides.
Yeah, but he's also central.
He's central, and he brings the movie to a good conclusion.
He really does. The whole movie is yeah, it's just, they have these weird tone shifts from the comic to the violent, back to
and
the
some
comic.
of it doesn't work. The scene with that dopey white cop that they leave to protect, to watch this woman, just does not work. It's kind of intrusive, and you know where it's going. She seduces him, and he ends up naked in public, and it's just kind of stupid.
But it was also really funny because, I mean, first of all, when she says, "Do you want to get in the shower with me?" My hand was up so fast. Not for nothing. But I kind of liked that she was just playing.
Fucking with it.
Yeah, because what she was doing, like, the man's not a conscious racist.
Yeah.
But because of when it is, he has no idea how racist he actually is.
Yeah. Because
he's really genuinely not trying to be.
The kind of person that would tell you, well, I'm not racist.
Right.
I always say, if you
Some
have
of my
to
best
start,
friends are...
If you have to start a sentence with, "Now, I'm not racist," you're about to be racist.
I'm the least racist person, believe me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anywho, the reason that they had to do that,
it does have a payoff.
It does, and it's a style that is prevalently used by black filmmakers, because and some white ones that grew up in poverty.
Yeah.
Because if you watch something like this, where it's hilarious and you're laughing, and all of a sudden there's a shootout, and at the end of that, where people could get killed with stray bullets, And immediately this turns into a different movie. When that's over and nobody's injured, it goes right back into the comedy. Because in those situations, people live like that.
Early Riser is the first person in this movie, and I think the only person in the movie to be killed.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's hit by a car.
Right.
And then the movie immediately goes back into the comedy.
Right. So it was like that for them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, violence could just break out at any point. It's like watching an early Scorsese picture. When you're looking at like Mean Streets or Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, the violence just happens and then it's over and you can't talk about it.
And life goes right back to where it was.
Right. It just snaps right back to where it was before that, minus that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so you see it, and the reason that it tends to quote unquote work in white pictures is because they don't switch back to humor as much as they just switch back to normal.
Yeah.
Which is different.
Yeah.
It's a different mindset.
A good context is the scene in Goodfellas when they're sitting in a restaurant and they're laughing and joking, and then Tommy escalates with the restaurant owner to the point where he just in a moment just smashes the bottle over the guy's head, and then everybody's laughing and talking about it. Yeah, just and then and then life just goes right back to where it was.
But then there's also the "Am I a clown to you" scene.
Yeah,
you have no idea. They're best friends, but you have no idea if Tommy's going to shoot.
Right.
Henry. You have no idea.
And it's that thing where I control the moment.
Right.
We play when I want to play.
But in these different in a more of a black I hate to say black movie, a black person making a movie, black filmmakers will go.
Black cinema is not a bad term.
Right. So in black cinema, it's the they go from one extreme to the other and right back. It's like pulling a rubber band.
Yeah.
And it shoots out and then it comes back. Like it's white people stay in the tragedy, whereas black people will try to immediately move past it because there's been so much of it in their lives.
And it happens so frequently.
Day to day, hour by hour.
You can see this. I don't know if it still happens anymore, but you can see this in so many. I'm thinking of all of the films from then till now, directed by black filmmakers. Comedies, dramas, where a moment of comedy is broken by a serious, dramatic, very serious incident, and then whips right back to the not comedy, but back to life. Life goes on, things happen, and it just whips back around. That happens a lot in this movie.
Yeah. It's as my wife liked to point out to me, it's a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Because of how horrifying day-to-day life is, you want to go back to just being happy, and unfortunately, to people who aren't in that universe, it looks like they're trying to write off the violence as unimportant, but really
or they don't care.
Right, but it's not that at all. It's more, it's just a coping mechanism. It's trying to keep sane in a world that is engineered to drive you insane.
if there was a gunfight in the street in front of my house,
mm-hmm.
we would be talking about it for weeks.
Mm-hmm.
In this environment, you wouldn't.
No.
The stereotype, I hate to call it that, but I have to call it that. The stereotype of cutting to a scene in an inner city neighborhood is that in the distance you hear police sirens and gunshots.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not unusual.
Right.
Because it's a suggestion that you hear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Gunshots, police sirens, chaos is just part of every day.
Right.
Which is tragic.
Mm-hmm.
Really tragic. And I remember Boys in the Hood was, in a lot of ways, all about that. In that Lawrence Fishburne was trying to get his son basically out of that neighborhood
Mm-hmm.
before that over there gets over here and ends up in my front yard.
Right. Right.
I want to protect my child from this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's an interesting way to look at it, and it unfortunately is very true.
Yeah.
But I always love when in this movie when the white characters come in, because they're so far out of their element. But there's always
they
this
have
attitude.
no idea.
But there's always this attitude, like, we're police officers. We know this. It's like, no, you really don't. You really don't know what's going on.
Right.
Because there's this white guy who comes to Red Fox's little house there by the sea, who just looks so completely lost.
Yeah. He just
This bale of cotton, by the way, ends up on the stage
of this weird, almost like vaudeville minstrel show, but at the Apollo.
Yeah, because it's interesting. Red Fox is trying to sell this bale of cotton. He sells it to a junk dealer, played by Lou Jacoby, who then he comes back and buys it back from him, because I think he knows what's up.
The people came and said, "Hey, do you have this?" And he goes, "No, I don't have it anymore, but I can get it for you.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on a minute." And they said something about the money being in it.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes, buys it back, takes the money out, mm-hmm. sells it then to the people who were looking for it, empty.
Mm-hmm. And ends up at the Apollo.
Beautifully absconds with the... I'm giving away the end, but if you pay attention, you actually know where it is the whole time.
Well, from the moment you see that bale of cotton what that bale of cotton is all about.
Oh, yeah.
You already know the money's in it. But the funny thing is, and I love this, when you get to the end, this woman is trying to do this sort of one-woman show about kind of an up from slavery kind of...
Yeah.
It's kind of an up from slavery kind of interpretive dance.
Yeah.
And she's...
It's very odd.
Yeah, because... she's naked except for cotton balls that are placed strategically to keep the movie from getting...
It was like a PG movie as it was. And,
yeah, keep her from getting an R rating. Yeah. But she's doing this weird interpretive dance, which she's very convincing because she tells the director, who is absolutely not listening to her, it's like... Yeah. I want to do something that represents the struggle of my people. And the guy's like, I'm not hearing. I have no idea what you just said. And everybody shows up at the Apollo.
Yes.
Everybody. and they're all there, and this interpretive dance is going on, and that bale of cotton is on stage.
Just, mm-hmm.
And it's like, who's gonna get to it first? I love this because the twist at the end is the money is gone.
Mm-hmm.
Because Red Fox is absconded with it.
And he sends this wonderful little...
Because they think he's dead.
Yeah.
They've been dragging the river for him.
Yeah.
Because he disappeared.
Yeah.
He sends this wonderful little photograph of himself with all of these naked women.
Surrounded by 3 beautiful topless women. Native to wherever he went to.
I think it was Ghana.
Yeah, maybe.
I think he says it was Ghana, and he has opened a plantation.
Yes, that's right.
With the $87,000, and this is his retirement.
His name is Booker Washington Sims.
Yeah.
But he's called Uncle Bud. But he's Booker Washington. So there's a whole thing there.
They're driving around, and they get the letter. They get the postcard that he has taken off with it. He says, by the way, if you're dragging the river looking for me, you can stop now. I'm very happy in my retirement at a plantation that I've started in Ghana. And they don't go and pursue it.
No, not even
They don't pursue it. It's just good on him.
Yeah.
And the Reverend Deke O'Malley he's outed as this con man. The weird thing is, even when everybody knows what the man has done, he is still trying to save his own ass.
Oh, yeah. I love it when he's on stage and he's like, listen to me, I have something to tell you. But he doesn't. Yeah. He has nothing to say.
He's trying to snake his way out of this.
Yeah, he is. And it's really quite fascinating. Mm-hmm. The way that he's trying on stage to blame the police or do all that, and it just won't work because they know.
It's not happening.
They can see what has been going on, and it's just. I don't know. It's kind of a beautiful moment where the people finally turn on the guy that's just been pulling their legs for years.
And that woman right at the beginning, that woman calls him Black Judas.
Yeah.
From the audience, it all falls apart for him.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, Uncle Bud ends up getting. His nice little retirement. I love that ending.
Yeah.
I love that ending.
Yeah, it's a really good ending. I enjoyed that.
But that's all I got.
That's it.
I love this movie. It's just it's a fascinating film.
It's a lot of fun.
And so many of the supporting players are written just an inch or two deeper than they normally would in a movie like this. Cleavon Little and Judy Pace and everybody, they're all written just a little bit more, so it creates this community of people that the two guys are going through. The two guys, by the way, returned in a sequel that what previously we said is impossible to find. Coffin Ed and Gravedigger Jones. And
doesn't the white cop come back? Casper?
I have no idea.
Is that his name, Casper?
It's been decades since I saw the sequel. It's called Come Back Charleston Blue. And they were also supporting players played by different actors in A Rage in Harlem in 1991.
Yes. Based on it's kind of it's a trilogy that Chester Himes pretty much put together way back. Yeah.
It really, really pains me because I like to think that those two guys, they could have made a whole series.
This could have been a whole franchise.
Yeah. The second one didn't do as well, so they didn't do any more. But this could have been a whole franchise. They could have done, 5 or 6 movies.
This could have been movies. This could have been a TV show.
Still could.
Yeah, actually.
Still could.
I think
I don't know if I don't think any writer today would write this film in this specific way. The tone would be different.
It would be, unless it was somebody actively trying to emulate Ossie Davis's original film.
Or going specifically by the book. Because this movie is the tone shifts are jarring. But I think a lot of those tone shifts are what make it.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And
anyway.
I just want to know, it was funny that you had mentioned this, because the day that you told me you wanted to do this, I looked it up and I discovered that the movie that I had just finished watching was released was also starring Godfrey Cambridge, and came out on the exact same day. A movie that we differ on.
Which explains why I'm sitting here pinching my nose.
Watermelon Man.
I hate the Watermelon.
The Melvin Van Peebles. I thought it was hysterical.
That movie gets under my skin.
It's supposed to. Because he's saying everything out loud that the black community assumes white people are thinking in their heads.
Godfrey Cambridge, who's in this movie, who's in Cotton Comes to Harlem, plays Jeff Gerber, who is a white racist insurance agent, and who wakes up one morning to find himself a black man.
Yes. And then over the course of those months, he comes to understand how wrong he was and come to love himself as he is, and understands what his former mindset did to people, and it ended up radicalizing him.
I remember his performance being... I remember his character was very whiny, and kind of... And I know that's the beginning of the movie,
he's playing a stereotype
white man,
white guy that...
in white makeup.
Yes, they wanted a separate actor. And they also wanted the ending to be he wakes up and he was white and it was just a nightmare. And Peoples was like, I don't get to wake up.
Yeah. I don't get to wake up white. And it also confirms my theory that I think Estelle Parsons was probably in 60% of the movies released between 1965 and 1975.
Well, hey, she had to get mileage out of that Oscar. She had to put mileage in to get it, and then she got mileage out of it.
Did she win the Oscar?
For in '67 for supporting
for
Bonnie
and Clyde?
and Clyde. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. But as I'm going through the movies of 1970, I'm like, Estelle Parsons again?
Yeah, she's in a lot. An awful lot. But yeah, so that is Cotton Comes to Harlem. I don't know what we're doing next or when, hopefully soon.
Life has gotten in the way.
I moved halfway across the country and getting myself set up, through work and where we are. We're still in a temporary residence, but we are. I had to get back to this. It was just calling to me, and so I think we're going to be back on as regular a schedule as we can make. I have not picked anything yet, but as we are rolling into March, which is National Women's Month, my first thought off the top of my head, if you can find it, is Vittorio De Sica's Two Women with Sophia Loren, where her Oscar-winning performance.
Won an Oscar for that.
The first person to ever win an Oscar for a part that was not in English.
Yes, yes. And it didn't happen very often.
It has only happened 3 times.
Yeah.
It's happened with her for Two Women. It happened for Roberto Benigni in The Life is Beautiful, and for
Avian Rose.
Yeah, Marianne Cotillard.
Yes. Wonderful performance, by the way. That's
Do you
a
know
wonderful
I still
movie.
haven't seen that movie.
That's a wonderful movie.
Still haven't gotten around to it. But it's very likely that we will do Two Women if you can find it.
Yeah.
I know I have a copy of it, so yeah, so that might be what we do next, or I might find something even more feministically empowering that we could talk about.
I'm going to say that a lot of my choices in the future are going to come out of what I'm discovering as I'm doing this video project.
Which I'm really happy for, because I like movies from the 70s, and 1970 is a fascinating year because old Hollywood was crumbling, and new Hollywood was trying to say that the bones were still good and they didn't have to rebuild.
Right.
And so we're at that part in Thor Ragnarok where Kor's looking at it and goes, as long as you've got the foundation, you can rebuild, everything will be great, and then it explodes.
Yeah.
That's what Hollywood was doing in 1970, trying to convince themselves that the bones could hold, and then it explodes. I love it.
The production code broke down, and that does apply to this movie, by the way. The production code broke down. The old Hollywood standards, the rating system came in. The old Hollywood standards were not in flux anymore because young people were going to the movies, and young people did not want to see a 52-year-old leading man and a 45-year-old leading lady.
As
and
teenagers.
They were not
as teenagers.
Yeah.
Almost
as
every
20-year-olds.
Right. Like you watch The Blob.
Yeah.
Tell me how you expect me to believe Steve McQueen is under 18.
Right.
How?
What's fascinating, what I'm discovering about 1970 is this is not a great year for movies. Because I've noticed, I went through and listed all the films that I'm reviewing for that project.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, out of all of them, I'm only giving thumbs up to, like, 40%. And the funny thing is, as I was going through it, there's not a lot of movies from 1970 that you remember. You remember Patton. You remember MASH. Those are the two big ones.
Yeah.
Maybe Love Story. I don't think younger people know Love Story.
Not really.
But there's just not a lot that stayed around. But I noticed it's a really great year for actors.
Yeah. Well, the
leading
70s in
roles.
general became not only a director's medium, but an actor's medium.
I was talking about leading male actors in leading parts.
Mm-hmm.
For films that, like George C. Scott and Patton, for example. Elliot Gould was great in a movie called Getting Straight, where he plays a guy who he's a college professor who becomes sort of radicalized.
Right.
There's Gene Wilder in a wonderful romance called Quaxer Fortune as a Cousin in the Bronx, in which I was telling Doug off mic that the only struggle with that movie is believing that Gene Wilder is playing an Irishman.
Now, see,
Gene Wilder's not Irish, by the way.
no, very much not. I pulled up my little my movie database, my just to see what I had from 1970. Yeah, And you're right. I actually only own 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I only own 2 of them, and that's Patton and Mash.
I own 18 movies from 1970.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you got Beyond the Valley of the Dolls.
Mm-hmm.
Drive, he said.
Yeah.
5
Which
Easy
I didn't review.
That was good. 5 Easy Pieces.
Why have we not done that one?
I don't know. Get Carter, Little Big Man, 12 Chairs, Woodstock.
I saw 12 Chairs for the first time the other night.
It's not bad.
I saw it the other night.
Myself.
Let me tell you about 12 Chairs. 12 Chairs is the movie that Mel Brooks directed between the producers and I believe Blazing Saddles. I don't know which came first, Blazing Saddles or Young Frankenstein. But he hit that double whammy.
Blazing Saddles came first because Gene Wilder pitched Young Frankenstein to Mel Brooks during the shooting of Blazing Saddles.
So it was between the producers and Blazing Saddles. Let me tell you what happened the other night. I'm sitting there watching it. It is the only Mel Brooks movie I have never seen. And I watched
think it was one of like maybe 2 or 3. I think I've never seen Life Stinks. I think that's the only other one I haven't seen.
You're not missing anything.
I know. That's why I haven't seen it.
I watched 12 Chairs, and I sat back, and I thought, okay, I'm about to have a new experience with a Mel Brooks movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't laughing. I sat there, and I'm thinking, this is a good movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a well-made movie. It's one of his favorites.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not laughing.
Well,
it's something about it.
It's an old story.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's been filmed 18 times.
Yeah.
Based on a Russian novel.
Yeah. So there was that. There was Woodstock, of course.
There's a triple whammy with documentaries. There was that. Woodstock. Let It Be. There was a documentary about Dr. King. That was done as without narration, and it's just his journey from Montgomery to Memphis. It's called Montgomery to Memphis.
That's a great picture.
There's a documentary called Jack Johnson.
Oh, I think I know about that.
It's narrated by Brock Peters, and it's based on the writings of Jack Johnson, the heavyweight.
Yeah.
First African-American man to become the heavyweight champion of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And just how his fame in the ring allowed him to thumb his nose. He wore beautiful clothing. He drove a Rolls Royce. He courted white women. And this was the very early years of the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just...
Yeah.
It was just this nice middle finger, and he dated a white one. It was the same year as The Great White Hope, which is not great.
Oh, it's not.
It's a great performance.
The Great White Hype was better.
The Great White Hope was not a great movie. It felt very stagey.
No. Did you ever see the Great White Hype?
I did.
Yeah,
that was a weird movie.
Yeah, that was weird too.
That was a weird movie.
But you've also got 2 Truffaut movies that you can pick from if you haven't watched them yet.
I haven't watched them. What I'm going to do is if I have missed something in 1970, once the video project is over, then I'm going to go back and do a separate video on those.
Hadn't seen previously.
That I hadn't seen previously.
Okay.
There's a movie with Liza Minnelli called Tell Me You Love Me, Junie Moon.
Oh, okay.
And I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to watch it.
You've got Bed and Board. You've got The Wild Child. You've got Akira Kurosawa's Dodeska Den, which is really good. Well, you've got Beneath the Planet of the Apes, so we can move on.
I did that movie.
Oh, you did. I haven't gotten through all of your stuff, so I'm still I regrettably haven't had much time for it. But
there's only 2 videos. It's in 3 parts. I did January to April, and then May to August, and then September to December. Mm-hmm. And I'm working on the 3rd part. It's a daunting project because I have to get through a lot of movies that I hate, because I just discovered the Owl and the Pussycat, and that was a piece of shit.
Oh. I'm so sorry.
That movie was dog shit.
That is
and
not
I love
good.
Streisand. I do.
That is not good.
That is not good. No.
But
I did
anyway.
discover I liked Scrooge.
Hey.
I couldn't believe it. I loved Scrooge.
With
Albert Finney.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, since we've gotten way off track.
Okay, sorry. Because we don't know when you're going to hear from us again.
Yeah, no. So we're just kind of loading this in. You can find all of our back episodes at the podbaydoorspodcast.wordpress.com. You can find all of Jerry Dean Roberts' writings at, let's see here, armchaircinema.com, armchairoscars.wordpress.com, and overthinkingoscars.wordpress.com, as well as the name of your YouTube channel,
Armchair Cinema.
Armchair Cinema. And you can find the writings that I used to do at talkmovietome.com. I promise I'm coming back to that. I have neglected it for many a year after I started writing my book, and I'm kind of jonesing to come back to it. So I'm trying to think of a way to break back in.
Are you like Michael Douglas in Wonder Boys? It's just it's you can't find the end.
Right. I can't.
Chasing the end of the book.
Why are you writing it? Because I can't stop. I love that movie so much.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that movie.
That episode is on our
yes,
webpage too.
that episode too. Yes. So you could check us out, see what's what, and you can head over to our Patreon, which I believe is still functional.
It's not. I'll fix that.
At pod_bay is our handle there. We also have a handle on the app formerly known as Twitter. That is also at pod_bay. The app formerly known as Twitter. I don't want to give that idiot any kind of branding credit whatsoever. Hate that man. Cannot stand that man. Anyway, that's a topic for a different time. Thank you so very much for joining us. And the pod bay doors, after creakily getting open, have now closed.
The mission has been completed.
Ain't now, but it's gonna be black enough for me. Ain't now, but it's gonna be black enough to see red when the song is wrong, to see blue when the fear is gone, to see green on the pea green sea of humanity in the white, white light of the night. And now, but it's gonna be black enough to be black enough to see, black enough for me. To see red when the song is wrong, it's gonna be black enough to be black enough to see, black enough for me. Ain't now, but it's gonna be